Okay, so the next company is PILA Pharma and CEO Gustav Gram. Welcome and take it away.
Thank you. So hello everyone, nice to be back in Stockholm. My name is Gustav Gram. I am the CEO of PILA Pharma, and I'm very delighted to be here today for Cardiovascular and Metabolic Day, which is of course a very broad topic. So I've brought a lot of slides, but I hope we can get through them in a short amount of time. So for those of you who don't know us, we're a small biotech. We're based in Malmö in southern Sweden. We were founded in 2014 by Ms. Dorte Gram, who is an ex-research scientist at Novo Nordisk. And we are looking to develop what's called a TRPV1 antagonist for treatment of metabolic diseases such as obesity, diabetes, and potentially different types of cardiovascular disease. We have a lead compound. We were created in 2014. We in-licensed and subsequently bought this molecule. And in 2016, this is a TRPV1 antagonist that has a good safety profile. Safety has for some time been associated with these types of molecules. So we've been on the lookout for a molecule that had a better profile than others. And we believe we found one. So we've run 2 clinical trials with this in type 2 diabetes. And now we're looking to potentially also see if we can get results in obesity. This is our pipeline for now. We have the diabetes track, which is in phase 2. We're about to hopefully start phase 2A trial very soon. We sent out a press release this morning, and I'm sure we will get back to that in the Q&A. We also have a track for abdominal aorta aneurysm, which is a cardiovascular disease where the aorta dilates. And it's a killer, let's put it that way. As far as we have researched, it kills annually 1% of all men above 65. And this is the case with many of these metabolic diseases, is that obesity and diabetes may be the underlying reasons, but what kills you is a cardiovascular disease. So there's an overlapping component to many of these diseases that are quite difficult to explain. I made this slide sometime in the spring, and this is primarily associated with the rise of obesity medicine. And I think it's very obvious that we nowadays have 2 global players who very much dominate this market. But there's a huge influx of companies coming through. And we see that the market is transitioning a little bit away from just being able to produce weight loss, but also to focus on the quality of weight loss. So companies are assessing new molecules, new combinations, in order to find new possibilities for bringing down body weight, where it's maybe primarily fat mass and not so much muscle mass, which has been shown with these GLP-1 analogs. And of course, we, as a small company with a very different type of mechanism of action than the other molecules in development, we hope that potentially we could be of interest if we can showcase anything on body weight in the future. And of course, you all know potentially the rise of diabetes, but of course diabetes is often associated with obesity. So this is a slide from IQVIA just to showcase that this is a global phenomenon. The market is gigantic, it's expanding beyond comprehension, and there will be a market even if you can showcase moderate weight loss with, let's say, good cardiovascular beneficial effects. So we're very hopeful that we can progress to a point where we can be attractive to larger pharmaceutical companies for partnerships or potentially acquisition. Let's see. Yeah, and diabetes, I was here in August and also presented this slide. Nowadays, it's stagnating a bit in the western part of the world because majority of people are already obese, potentially, or already have diabetes. And nowadays, we see triple-digit growth in places like Africa and India and some parts of Asia as well are having trouble. And of course, there's a huge amount of people going around undiagnosed with diabetes. And all of the complications associated with diabetes are, of course, very costly for societies as well as the private individuals that are hurt. So just to give you an idea of the market sizes we're talking about, it's quite difficult to put into words how big they are. And every time I see new estimates, it kind of blows my mind. So I believe obesity as a whole for weight loss molecules are now in the range between 150 and 300 billion US dollars a year. Nowadays, of course, a lot of that value is also associated with the beneficial effects that you can achieve in reducing body weight. Let's say you can save a lot of money on diabetes treatment or on cardiovascular treatment because you have the preventive effect. So this is just to showcase that these diseases are very much so overlapping. And if you have effect on, let's say, obesity, you're likely going to have effect on the others, and so forth. And so, of course, this is a highly attractive space to be a part of, and we can see that on the deal flow as well in the industry. So in the industry, we've seen a huge influx of smaller biotechs coming through with new solutions, and we've been able to watch the big guys basically compete left, right, and center. We have Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk who are looking to expand their horizons beyond just GLP-1s, and you have everyone else looking to try and enter the market to get a piece of the cake. So this is, of course, a hugely attractive space for us, and we feel like we're in a pretty good position because we are, so far, to our knowledge, the only ones doing this type of mechanism for treatment of obesity and obesity-related diseases and disorders. We also see nowadays that cardiovascular disease are being increasingly attractive for large pharmaceutical companies to buy up smaller biotechs in order to potentially, let's say, combine with their existing molecules. So we're keeping all doors open, and we're very excited to see how far we can bring this, of course. So a little bit about why we think that we may be able to compete on, let's say, body weight loss. So this is an unpublished graph with a TRPV1 antagonist that is surprisingly similar in its chemical structure to our molecule. And this graph basically showcases a mouse model where the mice have been induced with 2 different dose levels of this TRPV1 antagonist, and it has been shown that they don't put on as much body weight as placebo. Now, this is interesting because this particular mouse model has been used in quite a lot of other trials, and it has been converted to human trials as well, and it translates to body weight loss in humans. So we think that once we up the dose, we might be able to see an effect on body weight loss as well. We have some data on diabetes. We were a little bit limited by the fact that we only had 1 month of toxicology data, so we could not produce very long trials. But we have seen a very good improvement in insulin sensitivity, and we've also shown a very, very strong reduction in a cardiovascular biomarker called ANP. This biomarker is associated with the risk of heart failure. And of course, if we can produce such results on a 1 dose level over 1 month of treatment, then it gives us quite a lot of hope and confidence that we can produce even better results once we up the dose and we conduct longer trials. So this is actually the best results we have so far, and we have seen quite some interest from both the industry and from cardiologists regarding this. So for some reason, I put this up in my presentation from the spring, my first CEO presentation here at Redeye. And back then we were #1 on First North in terms of performance. And we still are. So that's, of course, very delightful to see that investors have found us and have some sort of belief in our project. And we, of course, hope that we can continue the good trend that we have seen so far. This is data from Avanza here in Sweden. And we have also been, it's not an award, but we've been mentioned in Nordnet in Denmark in their summer newsletter as one of the top 10 most foreign traded stocks. So that's, of course, very interesting. It needs to be said that myself and the founder Dode, we are Danish. So, of course, maybe that resonates a little bit more with some of their audience. But nevertheless, we're in very good company, as you can see. And of course, this is a bit flattering. I took a slide from the last time, or the previous time, my presentation in May, where we had a very strong share development after the first month of my period here. And I hope that you can see at which point the stock graph is at the time. And I can just say that we have really progressed well since then as well. And we have solidified the company. We took in some money in the summer. We capitalized on the good movement. And we're well suited for the foreseeable future. Of course, we are hopeful that we can continue this. And I'm happy to say that, of course, if we can have such development with no clinical activities, then I'm very hopeful that we can produce something greater once we start to get closer to results. And just a slide to give you a comparison of our peers. In Denmark specifically, of course, there's a huge amount of companies focusing on weight loss. We have PILA Pharma and we have Gubra, that's the red and the green. And I've also pulled in Viking Therapeutics from the US here, which is also one of the few listed biotechs doing obesity. And at least in the last 6 months, we have outperformed them. So that's quite remarkable. But it needs to be said that, of course, these companies have had very high valuations after some very explosive growth in the last couple of years. So we're hopeful we could potentially be one of the next companies to experience such growth. Associated with the good development, we've of course also seen a very nice growth in shareholders, and we are, of course, always looking to get to know more shareholders and be in touch. And we are always reachable, myself and our chairman, Dorte, and we are, of course, open to dialogue with any investors who find interest in our project. We have a very good board of directors. We have our founder, Dorte, who's the chairman. She's also our chief science officer, basically steering the ship, setting the direction which we need to go in order to make sure that we get to where we need to go and to get the results that would be of use for a potential partnership or acquisition. We have Richard, who's from, he's a Swedish native, but he lives in London. He's from the finance world. And we have Julia and Lasse, who are Danish, but have a great amount of experience from big pharma, mainly on the market access and get-to-market strategies. And we feel these two competencies that we took in April, we feel that they will be very beneficial for us in order to create the right strategy to make sure we can ultimately create good shareholder value through the clinic. Small management team myself, we have Elna as the CFO, and we have Dorte, who's Chief Science Officer. We're not super many employees, but those who are there, we're very tightly knitted, and we like to work with what we do, and we're very motivated for the future. So I'd like to round off and just say thank you, and I hope that if you have an interest, you reach out. We're always keen to meet existing investors and, of course, new investors. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Maybe first off, you mentioned that you today press released about
Yes.
an clinical optimization of the clinical development plan. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on that?
Yes, so originally we had planned to conduct our next phase 2A in a non-hospital setting. This was part of the discussions with the CRO with which we were working on the clinical trial application. But during the process of planning, we discovered that there might be some risks associated with conducting a safety trial in a non-hospital setting. So we have internally in the team, we have discussed and we have found that it may be preferable to at least start in a hospital site to make sure we can see where how patients react to increase dose levels. Now, there's also a lot of opportunities with conducting in a hospital because they have a lot more functional equipment. We can measure on stuff like body weight composition. We can measure on heart function. We can measure on many different things that can give us more answers as to the mechanistic nature of our molecule and how it works, and potentially if it's useful for treating other types of cardiovascular disease. It could be heart stiffness. It could be many different things. We also find a lot of interest from investors in certain types of heart failure. I mean, there's quite a lot of variation there. So we're hopeful that we can of course use this as an opportunity to optimize on the efficacy side as well. So we ultimately, we may be a little bit delayed, but if we can produce more results and better quality, I'm pretty sure that investors would find this of good interest. That's for sure.
Maybe you can elaborate a bit more about what type of study it is and what the primary goal is.
Yeah, so this is an efficacy. It's a safety study primarily. So it will basically it will be to dose escalate patients to see what the tolerance level is. So far, we have only tested with 4 milligram tablets. But in order to actually have a useful readout for a phase 2B, we would need to know how high we can push these patients. In the last trial we saw, we had a feeling that maybe we didn't push them hard enough. So it's of course natural to, in order to maximize the efficacy, you also need to know where the limit for side effects are. So that's the primary purpose. And then we have also wanted to include a little bit more patients in the trial so we could have a readout on the potential effect on body weight regulation.
Okay.
So body weight loss in that sense, yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned that you conducted a directed issue this summer, right?
Yes, so that was, I mean, as I presented here in August as well, I mean, that was directly correlated with our wish to improve the study, to include more patients, and to get started on the actual process of getting the clinical trial application ready, getting the protocol ready. So we're still well underway with this, and that money is, of course, as we have not really started the trial yet, it's not really getting spent either. So I mean, it's status quo, and we're in a good position.
And if this trial would be successful, what would be the natural next step? And for example, a phase 2b trial, and how many patients, for example, would that require?
I mean, of course, it depends on the results, right? So, I mean, if the results are groundbreaking, and if we can showcase a dramatic weight loss and it's pure fat mass, I'm pretty sure we will see substantial interest from pharmaceutical companies to come in with the partnership already. The alternative, which has always been the plan, is to conduct a larger phase 2b. This would be around 300 patients, 3 different dose levels, have some kind of comparator, perhaps it could be semaglutide, which is, of course, the most useful option here and now. And of course, it would require a little bit more funding from our side, but of course, we're hopeful that we can build trust in the company and our competencies and build up our valuation so that it will be a lot easier to achieve that when we get there. So for now, we're just laser focused on making sure that this phase 2A is as good as it can get. And I think, you know, there's no need to rush it. I mean, we're at a pretty pivotal point in the company's lifetime where we can potentially be within reach of something great in a couple of years, or 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. But if we rush into something and start, you know, we don't get adequate results, that would be a pity, because we've also fought for this for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And you also showed in your presentation that there are like 3 markets, for example, obesity, diabetes, and so on, that are correlated to some extent. What would you say would be the main indication that you would target initially? Is it obesity?
So, I mean, the invention as such from our founder, Dode, I mean, she found a new mechanism of action while she was working in the lab at Novo Nordisk back in the early 2000s. But back then, obesity wasn't a disease as such. So our focus has always been on diabetes. And of course, that's the natural track for us, since we have some results and we know that, you know, we know of the nature of diabetes. But everything seems to be engulfed in obesity talk nowadays. We also see it from investors. They want to know what's the obesity angle. So we're just trying to keep a narrow focus now on making sure that we have something that is potentially useful. If we can showcase that it works on obesity, then it becomes very interesting. That being said, if you want to make it an obesity drug as a standalone, we would need to go through the whole process again in terms of having to do obesity, you know, strictly obesity trials. So I would say diabetes is the main track for us, and of course we hope that by treating the underlying reasons of diabetes, we can also have beneficial effects on cardiovascular disease, as we see with our beautiful reduction in this biomarker that we produced in the last trial.
And you mentioned this also, but this is there's a lot of competition, a lot of interest. Can you maybe just briefly discuss how your drug candidate would differ from the rest and be a competitive?
I mean, most
drug?
of the companies nowadays are focusing on GLP-1s, it seems, and of course now it's transitioning a little bit into you know, next generation molecules. What is out there, and there's a huge number of small biotechs that come through with different variations, as I mentioned in the presentation, to our knowledge, we're the only ones doing this particular target, like T or PV1. We have seen other companies doing, let's say, CB1, which is the cannabinoid receptor, which is sort of similar, and they have been purchased up by some of the big pharma companies. And we see that, you know, that there are there's potential in looking beyond GLP-1s, and I think that gives us a lot of comfort, because if we can showcase that this molecule is tolerable at higher dose levels and is manageable over a longer time, then the whole safety concern, which has been prevalent in this space regarding this drug class in the past, if we can counter that and showcase that we can make it work, I think we can generate a lot of interest.
Sounds interesting with a new type of modality.
Let's see. I mean, we're very hopeful, and we're keen to of course produce some results, and ultimately, I mean, I can come and present here every other month, but development in the share price is created in the clinic, as I usually say, and of course we're keen to get started and hopefully showcase something great.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Gustav.
Thank you, Thor.